Anxiety can trick your bladder into sounding a false alarm. That means sudden urgency, pelvic tension, and the very real risk of your day shrinking around bathrooms. Stay with me for a clear, natural way to quiet the signal, safely. When I say anxiety can make your bladder act like an overcaffeinated smoke alarm, I'm not exaggerating, though I'm also not here to scare you. I'm here to give you calm, practical tools you can use today. Picture a typical North American morning, a tall, cold brew on the commute, a refill of office coffee before the inbox even loads, maybe a diet soda at lunch because it feels lighter. Then, at exactly the wrong time, traffic, a meeting, a checkout line, the urgent need to pee hits like a false fire drill. It's frustrating and, frankly, a little embarrassing. But the most helpful thing I learned is this: the bladder isn't the villain. The alarm system is. Here's the simple physiology in plain language. When I'm stressed or anticipating stress, my body releases chemicals that prime me to act fast. Heart rate nudges up, muscles brace, attention narrows, and sensory signals, including those from the bladder, get amplified. That amplified part is key. The sensation can feel louder than the actual volume in the bladder. If you've ever felt desperate to go and then discovered there wasn't much urine, you've met this mismatch firsthand. The system meant to keep me safe is over-helping. The tricky bit is how everyday habits keep the alarm stuck on high. Long commutes where we sip without thinking, extra caffeine because afternoons are heavy, sparkling waters and kombucha for the healthy fizz, hot sauce on wings during the game. None of these are inherently bad, but in people with a sensitive bladder nervous system link, timing and quantity matter. A lot. And so does the story we tell ourselves. What if there's no bathroom? What if I can't hold it? That thought loop turns the volume knob even higher. Let's start turning the knob down, gently and safely. First, I do a 10-second body check before reacting to the first urge. I pause and rate the urgency from 0 to 10. I ask, how long since I last went? What did I drink? Am I tense in my shoulders, jaw, or pelvic floor? This quick scan replaces panic with information, and information is power. Second, I practice a breath reset with a longer exhale. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4, exhale through the mouth for a count of 6. 3 rounds. This type of breathing cues the calm branch of my nervous system, which can soften the urgency within a minute. Third, I get strategic with fluids. I aim to front-load most of them before late afternoon and avoid chugging large amounts at once. Steady sips are easier on the system than sudden floods. I keep a 12-16 Oz mug for coffee and set a personal cutoff around midday, then switch to water or a gentle herbal option like chamomile. Energy drinks and repeated diet sodas often make the signal louder for me, so I save them for rare occasions. If you prefer sparkling water, notice whether bubbles increase urgency. Some people do fine, others feel more sensitive. The point isn't perfection, it's noticing your pattern. Fourth, I ride the wave of an urge rather than sprinting at the first ripple. Urges tend to surge, peak, and subside within 60-90 seconds. While I wait, I soften my abdomen and imagine the pelvic floor unclenching, like lowering a fist I didn't realize I was making. If I need an extra cue, I stand tall, shift my attention to my breath or to a neutral object in the room and let the peak pass. Then, if I still need to go, I walk, not rush, to the bathroom. This small shift trains the alarm to stop overreacting. There are important safety notes. Pain, burning, blood and urine, fever, and sudden changes deserve professional attention. Those can signal infection or other conditions and shouldn't be self-managed. Also, extreme fluid restriction isn't the goal. Urine that's pale straw-colored is a reasonable target for most people. On busy days, I used to overdrink just in case, and on anxious days, I sometimes underdrank to avoid the bathroom entirely. Both extremes backfired. Balance is quieter. I also want to plant a flag for something we'll build toward together. Sustainable, natural tools that reduce the alarm at its source. Think smarter caffeine habits, gentle nervous system resets, and bladder-friendly swaps that still feel like treats. And yes, I'm reserving a practical bonus for the end of this content. A simple 7-day caffeine smart plan with beverage substitutions that protect bladder comfort without making life boring. I promise it's realistic, and the steps are adjustable to your routine. Office refills, school pickups, game nights, all of it. Why does this matter? Because unmanaged urgency chips away at everyday life. Sleep gets interrupted, meetings feel like obstacles, workouts are cut short, and confidence takes a hit. On the flip side, small, consistent changes create a kind of quiet competence. Your body still signals, it just stops shouting. And when the shouting stops, choices feel bigger than the nearest restroom. Take a breath with me. 4 in, 6 out. That's your first dial down. Keep the coffee reasonable, the sips steady, and your mindset curious rather than critical. We're training a helpful system to be helpful again. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it doesn't just blunt your results, it can, for some people, lead to unwanted side effects. I'll explain it clearly so you can apply it safely and confidently. A moment ago, we reframed the bladder as an alarm, sometimes too eager, sometimes too loud. Now let's look at the wiring, because once you see how the signal travels, you can change how it behaves. I like to imagine 3 friendly roommates sharing one apartment: the bladder muscle, which squeezes or relaxes, the pelvic floor, which supports and seals, and the nervous system, which manages the schedule. When stress rises, the nervous system gets bossy. It sends alert chemicals and tightens certain muscles to prepare for action. That's helpful if you're sprinting to catch a train. Not so helpful when you're in a conference call or stuck on the freeway. Here is the simple map in everyday language. 2 branches of your nervous system share the job. One branch, the energizing, get things done branch, keeps the bladder relaxed for storage and tightens the outlet. The other branch, the rest and digest branch, does the opposite when it's time to empty. Anxiety tugs on that energizing branch in an irregular way. It can make sensations feel bigger, your pelvic floor brace without you noticing, and your attention lock onto bathroom worries. Add a mental soundtrack of what ifs. What if there's no restroom? What if I get stuck in traffic? And the circuit starts to loop. The more you anticipate trouble, the louder the alarm feels. We can disrupt the loop with practical steps that are both natural and safe. First, I use a planned bathroom schedule to retrain timing. Think of it like resetting a watch that runs fast. I pick reasonable windows, for many adults every 2.5 to 4 hours during the day, and aim to go within that range rather than at the very first hint of an urge. This teaches the bladder to store comfortably again. If an urge pops up early, I use the skills you've already practiced: longer exhales, a relaxed jaw and abdomen, and attention shifting for 1 minute. Most waves crest and settle. Then I check. Do I still need to go, or was it the alarm testing me? Second, I practice soften, don't squeeze. Many people, especially anxious, high-achieving types, unconsciously clench the pelvic floor all day while hustling through traffic, emails, and errands. That constant bracing can make the system more jumpy. Instead of repeated hard contractions, I imagine the base of the pelvis widening on the inhale and gently returning on the exhale, like a parachute opening and settling. If pelvic floor symptoms are complex, or you've had pain, heaviness, or recent surgery, guidance from a qualified pelvic floor professional is a smart move. Personalization matters. Third, I audit triggers in a way that respects real life. A lot of North American routines include high-acid or high-caffeine drinks and spicy or tomato-based meals. No moral judgment here. They're delicious. The question is tolerance. I run a 7-day experiment. I pick one likely trigger, say, energy drinks or multiple diet sodas, and replace it with water or a gentle herbal option like chamomile or roasted chicory. I don't change everything at once. One variable at a time makes the signal easier to read. If urgency softens, I've learned something. If not, I move to the next candidate: late evening sparkling water, hot sauce, or heavy chocolate at night. The goal is a personalized map, not a rigid rulebook. Fourth, I create a calm commute and a calm meeting plan. For long drives, I sip, don't gulp. I use a bottle with markings so my intake is steady, not sporadic. I limit fluids for the last hour before a predictable event, but I avoid total restriction, which backfires. For meetings, I arrive a few minutes early, use the restroom without rushing, take one grounding breath, and visualize success rather than problems. That tiny mindset shift reduces anticipatory anxiety, which often drives the loudest alarms. If I get an urge mid-meeting, I do a quiet longer exhale or gently press my feet into the floor to anchor attention. Nobody notices. My nervous system does. Fifth, I protect sleep. I taper fluids 2 to 3 hours before bed, use the restroom once with an unhurried pace, and keep the bedroom cool and dark. I resist the temptation to drink a large glass right before sleep just in case, because that often guarantees a wake-up call. If I wake at night, I pause and breathe for a minute to see whether the urgency wave settles. And if evenings are your spicy food time, pizza night, wings, pasta with red sauce, it may help to move those meals earlier or pair them with a neutral side to reduce irritation. There are reasonable cautions that keep this process safe. Pain, burning, fever, blood in urine, or sudden new leakage deserve medical evaluation rather than self-management. People with certain medical conditions or on specific medications may need tailored advice before changing fluid or caffeine intake. And while reducing early rush bathroom trips is helpful, forcing yourself to hold for extreme durations can cause discomfort and is not the goal. We're teaching the system to be calm and reliable, not testing its limits. When this wiring-first approach starts working, life expands in quiet ways. The daily meeting becomes a place to contribute rather than to worry. The commute turns into a podcast window, not a bathroom hunt. Gym sessions last longer. Confidence returns in layers, almost like the volume knob turning down a click at a time. You haven't fixed yourself. You've taught your alarm to respect context. That is a powerful, natural change. Take this as your gentle assignment. Map your typical day, pick one small trigger to test for 7 days, set a flexible bathroom window, and practice the longer exhale whenever an urge crests. 1 week from now, you'll likely notice the edges are softer. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it doesn't just limit your results, it can, for some people, lead to unwanted side effects. I'll break it down clearly so you can apply it with confidence and care. If my bladder kept a diary, some pages would always be smudged. The highway lane where I sip iced coffee without noticing, the stadium seat with buffalo wings and diet soda, the grocery line after a kombucha pick-me-up. These moments used to feel random. They aren't. They're patterns, subtle, repetitive choices that nudge the nervous system until the bladder alarm gets jumpy. The goal isn't to moralize everyday pleasures, it's to map which ones turn up the volume for me, so I can make calm, realistic swaps without feeling deprived. Let me show you the surprising cast of characters. Caffeine is the obvious one, but dose and timing matter more than blanket bans. A single morning mug might be fine, the refill at 11 a.m., the energy drink at 3 p.m. And the dark chocolate at 9 p.m. can stack into a steady drumbeat. Acidic foods can join the chorus. Tomato-based sauces from pizza night, salsa on Taco Tuesday, citrus-heavy smoothies, vinaigrettes that taste wonderfully sharp. Spice isn't bad, yet capsaicin can heighten sensation in sensitive people. Carbonation is sneaky. Some bodies love sparkling water, others feel louder urgency. And artificial sweeteners, especially the ones common in diet sodas and sugar-free gums, can irritate for a subset of folks. None of this is a universal rule. It's a personal map waiting to be drawn. There's also the temperature twist. Ice-cold drinks can make some bladders perk up, particularly if the sip is big and fast. Alcohol behaves differently for everyone, but beer and wine can be diuretic and lead to more trips, not to mention the dehydrating effect that concentrates urine later. Add in tailgate snacks, salty chips, barbecue sauce, hot wings, and you've created a perfect storm of louder signals. Again, these are not villains, they're dials you can turn. Now for triggers most people miss. Constipation is a major amplifier. A full bowel can press on the bladder and irritate the system. If you've been holding back fiber or rushing meals, your bladder might be paying the price. Tight waistbands and shapewear can increase pressure for some people. High-impact workouts, think jump rope or repeated sprints, can stir urgency on days when stress and caffeine already have the system humming. Even hygiene products can play a role. Heavily scented soaps or bubble baths near the urethra region can irritate sensitive tissue. And the invisible trigger? Anticipatory stress created by phones. A buzzing notification stream keeps the nervous system primed, and a primed system notices bladder signals more. Here's how I translate that knowledge into action without turning life into a spreadsheet. I run a simple 7-day, one change at a time experiment. Day 1 to day 3, I swap my afternoon energy drink or second coffee for water, or a gentle herbal option like chamomile or roasted chicory. Days 4 to 5, I keep the drink swap and test carbonation tolerance by choosing still water after 6 p.m. Days 6 to 7, I pair tomato-heavy or spicy meals with a neutral side, rice, plain yogurt, roasted potatoes, and observe whether urgency softens. I don't chase perfection. I collect clues. To make choices simpler, I use a traffic light system. Green means comfort foods that almost never bother me. Oatmeal with cinnamon, bananas, almonds, plain roasted chicken or tofu, broth-based soups, water at room temperature. Yellow means test and learn. Sparkling water, kombucha, hot sauce, chocolate, coffee afternoon. Red means pause for now, try later with intention. Energy drinks, multiple diet sodas in one day, heavy tomato sauces late at night, large fast gulps of any beverage right before a long drive. Your colors may differ, and that's the point. You're building a personalized map. Fluid timing is just as powerful as fluid type. I used to drink very little during work, then chug at 5 p.m. before the commute. That almost guaranteed a noisy evening. Now I take steady sips through the morning, slow down in the last 2 hours of the workday, and avoid big gulps within an hour of predictable can't-leave moments like presentations. I also mind salt and electrolytes. On hot days or after a sweaty workout, a pinch of salt in food and steady water intake can prevent the concentrated urine that feels extra irritating. No need for neon drinks unless they truly help you and your clinician recommends them. Constipation gets its own plan because it's that important. I anchor breakfast with fiber that's friendly to my stomach, oats, chia, or berries, and add magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds or spinach at lunch. I take short walking breaks during the day. Movement is a natural gut pacer. If bowel habits are irregular, I seek professional guidance rather than self-experiment endlessly. When the bowels move comfortably, the bladder usually behaves better. Clothing and posture are tiny levers with outsized effects. On high-stress days, I choose waistbands that don't dig and shoes that make me want to walk rather than brace. At my desk, I keep the ribs untucked and the diaphragm free to move so my breath can actually reach my abdomen. A soft belly tells the pelvic floor, you can soften too. Long road trips get a pit stop plan. Pause, stretch, sip, breathe. That turns a potential trigger zone into a training ground. My favorite habit makeover is the swap don't stop rule. If dinner is pizza, I add a big side salad without acidic dressing and sip still water. If it's wings night, I order mild sauce and space the bites. If friends love craft soda, I ask for half the usual serving over ice. For coffee, I mix half decaf for a week and see if my system thanks me. No drama, just data. A few safety notes keep this approach grounded. Sudden burning, fever, blood in urine, pelvic pain, or new leakage patterns deserve medical evaluation. People who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or managing conditions affected by fluid or caffeine changes should personalize these steps with a professional. The aim isn't extreme restriction or holding urine for unreasonable durations. It's steady, sustainable comfort. When I finally saw these saboteurs for what they were, adjustable levers, not moral tests, the pressure lifted. I stopped bargaining with bathrooms and started negotiating with my habits. That's a friendlier conversation, and it leads to better outcomes. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it may not only limit your results, but for some people can lead to unwanted side effects. I'll explain it clearly and practically so you can apply it with confidence. An overactive alarm needs a reset button it can trust. You've seen how habits can nudge the volume up. Now we'll train the system to turn it down on cue. I like to think of this as building a calm reflex, something you can do in a meeting, in traffic, at your desk, or in the kitchen without special equipment. It's simple, natural, and surprisingly effective when practiced consistently. Start with breath because it's the fastest, safest lever you control. I use a longer exhale pattern. In through the nose for a count of 4, out through the mouth for a count of 6. 3 to 5 cycles, anytime an urge rises. Longer exhales nudge the body toward the rest and digest mode that quiets urgency. I add a jaw unclench, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, and let the shoulders drop. It's subtle, but the pelvic floor listens when the jaw softens. Tension tends to travel in teams. Next comes a 90-second urge protocol that respects both comfort and safety. When the first wave hits, I pause where I am. I place one hand on the lower ribs to feel the breath expand. If the urge is sharp but not painful, I perform 3 quick, gentle lift-release actions of the pelvic floor, tiny, like picking up a blueberry with the muscles and setting it down, followed by a full, deliberate relaxation. If you've had pelvic pain, recent surgery, or find that any contraction increases symptoms, skip the lifts and focus solely on down training. Imagine the sight bones widening and the tailbone releasing as you exhale. I wait 1 minute as the wave crests and falls, then decide calmly whether to go. The point is not to win a contest, it's to teach the alarm it doesn't have to shout to get my attention. Posture matters. A slumped position compresses the abdomen and can crowd the bladder, while a rigid military stance makes everything brace. I aim for a middle path, feet grounded, ribs gently stacked over the pelvis, belly soft enough that air can reach it. I visualize breathing all the way into the waistband. On busy days, I set a reminder every 60-90 minutes to stand, stretch the hip flexors, and take 5 slow breaths. These micro breaks act like tiny software patches for the nervous system. Movement is medicine, but the dose is personal. I use a short, low-impact routine that calms rather than excites. A brisk 10-minute walk, cat-cow spinal mobilizations, and a gentle hip opener like child's pose with wide knees. If I'm at the gym, I sprinkle sets with breathing reps instead of stacking stimulants like pre-workout shakes and loud music. Afterward, I rehydrate steadily with water, not all at once. When exercise, hydration, and breath travel together, the alarm stays reasonable. Because the brain loves anchors, I create context-specific rituals. For commuting, I keep a bottle with small sips marked, cue a favorite calming podcast, and do 2 longer exhales at each red light. For meetings, I arrive 5 minutes early, use the restroom without rushing, and sit with both feet on the floor. I name one intention, contribute clearly, so my mind has something better to do than track exits. In grocery lines or stadium seats, I practice a sensory reset. Notice 5 things I can see, 4 I can feel, 3 I can hear, 2 I can smell, and 1 I can taste. That shifts attention away from worry cues, which quiets urgency. Food can support the reset in a very practical way. I aim for steady meals with enough protein and fiber to avoid the blood sugar roller coaster that amplifies stress. Breakfast might be oats with cinnamon and almonds, lunch a grain bowl with chicken or beans and roasted vegetables, snacks a banana or yogurt that isn't overly tart, magnesium-rich foods, pumpkin seeds, spinach, dark leafy greens, often help my muscles relax comfortably. I default to still water most of the day, reserving bubbles for when I know they won't interfere with sleep or long events. If I want something cozy at night, I choose a small mug of chamomile or melissa and keep citrus out of the cup. Sleep is the silent healer, so I defend it. 2 to 3 hours before bed, I taper fluids. I dim screens and lower the thermostat a bit. Cooler rooms often reduce nighttime wake-ups. If I wake with an urge, I try 2 slow breaths and a full pelvic floor release before deciding to get up. For many people, that minute of calm makes the difference between 3 nighttime trips and 1. If you snore heavily or wake unrefreshed, a professional check-in can be wise. Sleep quality affects bladder behavior more than most of us realize. Mindset completes the reset. I used to think every urge was a test of willpower. That made me rigid, which made the alarm louder. Now I treat urges as weather patterns. When a cloud rolls in, I don't yell at the sky, I carry an umbrella. The umbrella is my protocol: longer exhales, soft jaw, grounded feet, gentle release. If I need a mantra, it's short and factual. My body is safe. The signal is loud, not dangerous. That language keeps me responsive instead of reactive. A few practical cautions maintain safety. Pain, burning, fever, blood in urine, or new pelvic symptoms merit medical care rather than self-management. If you're pregnant, postpartum, post-surgery, or dealing with chronic pelvic pain, tailor these steps with a qualified professional. Contractions may not be appropriate, and downtraining can take priority. Avoid extreme fluid restriction or prolonged holding as a challenge. Comfort and consistency beat heroics every time. To summarize what you can implement today, use the longer exhale to switch states. Practice the 90-second urge protocol with either gentle lifts plus release or release only. Stack micro breaks into your day. Build tiny rituals for commute, meetings, and lines. Eat steady meals that calm the nervous system. Protect sleep with smart fluid timing. When these pieces click, you'll notice something almost boring in the best way. Ordinary moments feel ordinary again. You're no longer negotiating with bathrooms. You're choosing when and how to go. Hold on to that calm. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it may not only limit your results, but for some people can lead to unwanted side effects. I'll lay it out plainly so you can use it safely and confidently. When a system learns to settle, the next smart move is choosing allies that reinforce that calm, gently, predictably, and without unwanted surprises. I used to think natural meant any amount is fine. That assumption didn't serve me. Plants are powerful. Dose and preparation matter. So I started treating herbs and beverages like I treat training. One variable at a time, a feedback loop, and respect for how my body responds. I begin with a simple principle. Keep the signal clean. Instead of blending 5 herbs right away, I try single-ingredient infusions so I can hear the body's yes or no. Chamomile is my first stop because it's widely available and often soothing. A modest amount, about 1 teaspoon of dried blossoms in a standard mug, steeped for 5 to 7 minutes, tends to be enough for a noticeable exhale without grogginess. I keep the cup covered while it steeps to capture the gentle aromatics. Uncovered steam means losing the very compounds I'm after. Lemon balm is another steady ally. On days when my mind runs ahead of me, its soft lemon mint aroma acts like a conversational friend who lowers their voice so I match their volume. If you take thyroid medication or sedatives, it's reasonable to check with a clinician before making it routine. Personalization keeps things safe. Then there are the unsung heroes, demulcents, the soothers. Marshmallow root and corn silk don't get flashy headlines, but they can be kind to sensitive tissues for many people. I prepare marshmallow as a cold infusion. 1 tablespoon of cut root in a jar with about 2 cups of room temperature water, covered and left for 4 to 8 hours, then strained. The result is mild and slightly thick, like water with a friendly texture. I sip it across the afternoon rather than in a single sitting. For corn silk, I rinse a tablespoon of the clean, pale strands, ideally from organic corn, then steep them in hot but not boiling water for about 10 minutes covered. Both approaches are gentle, and both deserve a trial period where you pay attention to how you feel. Now for a few surprises that changed my habits. Decaf isn't caffeine-free, it's lower caffeine. For some sensitive folks, 2 large decaf coffees can still add up, especially if chocolate is in the mix later. Bottled herbal tea concentrates can carry acidic preservatives or added sweeteners that some bladders notice. The lemon wedge many of us drop into a soothing tea? Pleasant, but it can turn up the volume for a subset of people, and extreme temperatures can be stimulating. Ice-cold gulps and tongue-burning sips may both nudge the alarm in the wrong direction. I aim for warm, not scorching, and steady, not chugged. To keep this practical, I use a tolerance ladder. Step 1. Choose 1 herb and 1 time of day. Brew the smallest effective dose and note your urgency rating before and 60 minutes after. Step 2. Adjust 1 variable, either a slightly longer steep or a second small cup spaced hours apart. Step 3. If you notice sleepiness or digestive changes, scale back or try a different herb. Step 4. Only add a second herb after 3 calm days with the first. This keeps the signal readable and your results reliable. For coffee lovers, I don't preach abstinence. I engineer enjoyment. A half-calf blend in the morning, then a switch to roasted chicory or barley tea in the afternoon can feel familiar without the same nervous system push. Chicory brews dark and roasty. It scratches the itch for a mug you can wrap your hands around. If you're gluten-free, skip barley tea and lean on chicory, roasted dandelion root, or a robust rooibos. And if you love a cafe ritual, order a small size and savor. Volume is often the enemy, not flavor. Food partners matter as much as beverages. I anchor meals with commutes, foods that steady energy and mood. Oatmeal with cinnamon and almonds for breakfast, a grain and greens bowl with chicken or beans for lunch, and roasted vegetables with salmon or tofu for dinner keep me off the blood sugar roller coaster that makes the alarm itchy. Magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds, spinach, and dark leafy greens often help muscles relax. I season boldly with herbs that don't tend to irritate: basil, parsley, dill, so I don't miss the heat from a heavy hand of hot sauce at night. There's a lifestyle layer here too. I store herbs in glass jars away from light and heat so the useful compounds don't fade before I drink them. I buy from reputable suppliers to avoid fillers and heavy pesticide residues. I rinse loose herbs quickly to remove dust, but don't scrub away their character. And I respect the less is more rule. If a teaspoon does the job, a tablespoon might do harm. Our goal isn't to sedate the alarm, it's to teach it manners. Safety notes keep us grounded. If you're allergic to plants in the daisy family, chamomile may not be for you. If you use blood thinners or have a history of significant allergies, make your healthcare team part of this experiment. It's not overcautious, it's smart. Pregnant or breastfeeding? Herbal routines deserve an individualized conversation. Pain, burning, fever, visible blood in urine, or a sudden change in bladder control are not DIY projects. They are reasons to seek care. With that foundation, I've built a short list of reliable companions. A modest chamomile in the evening when I want the nervous system to lower its shoulders. Lemon balm on days when thoughts keep rehearsing worries. A cool glass of marshmallow root on afternoons when I've been on my feet and want comfort without stimulation. I don't use all of them every day. I choose like a chef, not a collector. As your own list takes shape, notice the ordinary victories. A commute without bathroom mapping. A full meeting where you focused on ideas rather than exits. A night where you woke once and went back to sleep easily. That's not luck. That's a trained alarm doing its job quietly. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it may not only limit your results, but for some people can lead to unwanted side effects. I'll walk you through it clearly so you can apply it with confidence. If there's a single idea that changed my relationship with urgency, it is this. Comfort arrives when the nervous system trusts the plan. Not when the bladder learns its lesson, not when I white-knuckle through urges, but when the whole circuit believes I'll respond with calm and consistency. Today, I'm handing you two things that cement that trust: a precise, safe preparation you can make at home, and the practical 7-day bonus plan that upgrades caffeine without feeling like punishment. Think of them as the recipe and the rhythm. Let's start with the recipe. The goal is gentle, not sleepy, soothing, not numbing. I prepare a small mug so I'm not loading my bladder with unnecessary volume. Here's exactly how I do it. I heat water to just under a boil, about 190 to 200 degrees, the point where small bubbles rise but the pot isn't roaring. I place 1 teaspoon of dried chamomile blossoms and 1 teaspoon of dried lemon balm leaves in a cup or teapot with a lid. I pour in about 8 ounces, roughly 240 ml, of the hot water, cover it, and set a timer for 5 to 7 minutes. Covering matters. It helps keep the aromatic compounds where they belong. When time is up, I strain the infusion and taste. If I want mild sweetness, I add a half teaspoon of honey and skip citrus entirely. I drink it warm, not scalding, and I sit while I sip, letting my shoulders drop. How to use it responsibly is just as important as how to brew it. For most adults, once a day is a reasonable starting point, timed for when anxiety tends to nudge the alarm. Late afternoon, after a meeting, or as part of a wind-down. If it feels helpful and doesn't cause drowsiness, some people tolerate a second small cup, spaced at least 4 hours apart. I avoid large mugs at night to protect sleep. A small serving is kinder. If you notice daytime sedation, stomach upset, or an allergic response, itchiness, skin changes, or mouth tingling, stop and check in with a professional. If you're pregnant, breastfeeding, recovering from surgery, or taking blood thinners or sedatives, personalization with your clinician is not optional. It's the safest way to get benefits without unintended effects. Some bodies prefer a different texture of comfort. When I want soothing without fragrance, I switch to a demulcent option, a cold infusion of marshmallow root. I place 1 level tablespoon of cut root in a clean jar, add 2 cups of room temperature water, cover it, and let it steep in the refrigerator for 4 to 8 hours. I strain it, pour a small glass, and sip across the afternoon. It's gentle and unassuming. If I'm preparing corn silk, I rinse a tablespoon of clean, pale strands, steep them in hot water for about 10 minutes, again covered, then strain. With both, I keep portions modest and hygiene high. Plants deserve the same respect we give food. Now for the bonus that ties the system together. The 7-day Caffeine Smart Plan is designed for real North American routines: commutes, office refills, school drop-offs, game nights. So the nervous system feels supported rather than surprised. Day 1 and Day 2, I blend 75% regular coffee with 25% decaf in the morning and skip afternoon caffeinated drinks entirely, replacing the 3 p.m. pick-me-up with still water or the chamomile lemon balm infusion. I swap lunchtime diet soda for plain water with cucumber slices or mint. Day 3 and Day 4, I move to a 50-50 coffee blend and keep energy drinks off the table. If I want fizz, I test a small can of plain sparkling water before 3 p.m. and watch how my body responds. Day 5 and Day 6, I mix 25% regular with 75% decaf. Evening beverages are still water or a small mug of a gentle herbal infusion without citrus. Day 7, I try 100% decaf or go all in on roasted chicory or rooibos and keep total volume sensible. Alongside the blend, I use a swap map so I never feel stuck. Iced coffee becomes iced chamomile with a splash of oat milk. Energy drinks become a banana plus water and a brisk 5-minute walk. Kombucha becomes a half portion diluted with still water, 2 or 3 times a week. Sports drinks become water paired with a salty snack after sweaty workouts. Cola becomes a tall glass of still water. Chocolate late at night moves to a warm bowl of cinnamon oats. If I love tomato-based dinners, I enjoy them earlier in the evening and pair them with non-acidic sides like rice or roasted potatoes. On wing nights, I go for mild sauce and a slow pace. To measure progress, I keep a tiny log. It's not a diary, it's a dashboard. I note the time I void, a quick 0-10 urgency rating, what I drank in the previous 2 hours, and any context: meeting, commute, workout. After a week, patterns emerge. Maybe the post-lunch diet soda made afternoons loud, or maybe carbonation after 6 p.m. was the real culprit. The log doesn't judge, it points. Once I see the pattern, I tweak one lever at a time and keep the wins. Safety anchors everything. Pain, burning, fever, visible blood, or a sudden change in control are signals for medical care, not more tea. If you have a history of kidney, liver, or complex pelvic conditions, your plan should be co-designed with a clinician. Extreme fluid restriction is not a shortcut. Pale, straw-colored urine is a reasonable aim for most people. And heroics, holding for long periods to prove a point, usually backfire. Reliability beats bravado. What happens when you combine the recipe with the rhythm is quietly remarkable. Meetings become opportunities to contribute, not endurance tests. The commute turns into time for a podcast rather than a bathroom search. Sleep settles into longer stretches. You start to trust your body again, and it returns the favor. That is the real point. We're not silencing a system, we're teaching it to speak at the right volume. If this guide has been useful, consider sharing it with someone who could use gentler days. Tap like so the platform knows this matters, and subscribe if you want more clear, respectful health education that treats your life as it is. Knowledge only becomes power when it's practiced with care, and you now have a plan worthy of your effort. The next tip is among the most important. Overlooking it may not only limit your results, but, for some people, can lead to unwanted side effects. I'll present it in a way that keeps you safe and confident.